Howdy, everybody. Chris here. We're back in the garage. Today we're working on this Hyundai Venue. We're going to be replacing the front bumper cover and some parts. We're going to walk you through the entire paint process from painting it to clear coating it. Today we'll be focused on applying our base and our clear coat. I'll give you all the tips and tricks I use to get a beautiful looking finish. We'll also talk about some different budget materials you can use and budget tools so you can get the best results possible without blowing the budget. And if this is going to be your first time painting a vehicle, it may not come out absolutely perfect. So stay tuned till the end because I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to correct any imperfections in your clear coat. This channel is dedicated to educating you on how to do auto body and paint repair so you can do this at home, maybe save yourself some money, or if you have a restoration project you're working on, get some tips and tricks that are going to help you get a quality job that's going to last for a long time. First step is to remove this old bumper cover. We're going to strip it down. We're going to save all the good parts and then replace the damaged parts. We've previously ordered all the damaged parts, so we have the new bumper on hand. I'll give you a quick explanation of how we prepared that for paint. There's has the OEM bumper ready for paint that was pre-primed from the dealership. So all we needed to do is basically sand that with 600 grit sandpaper. If you need a full explanation of how to prepare a used OEM or aftermarket bumper cover, check out the card at the top of this page.
You've got one bolt right here that holds it to the fender. You've got the clips all the way down. On the bottom portion, you're going to have 4 bolts that hold it on. And then on the top of the bumper, there's 4 clips that hold it.
So for this project, Darius is going to do this complete job. He tore it down, he prepped it out, he's going to paint it, and he's going to put it back together. So we're going to see how he does. He's going to do fantastic, I'm sure. But I'm quizzing him on how to adjust his paint gun, and we need to do a little bit of work on that. We are using this Innocraft Drizzle D1. This is a low volume, low pressure paint gun. It consumes less air, produces less overspray. It's perfect for working in this kind of environment where you're not in a spray booth, you're in an open garage, and there's a lot of fumes. So we want to limit those amount of fumes. We want to limit the cost of materials, and paint is very expensive. And because this is a low volume, low pressure paint gun, it consumes a lot less paint. I save a ton of money in paint when it comes to this paint gun. To set up this particular gun, we want to atomize our paint properly, but we want the least amount of overspray as possible. We're going to set up this gun at a full fan. We open our fan wide open. That's the top knob on this gun. And then we go to the next knob down, which is the fluid volume. That's the amount of material that's coming out of the gun, the paint. Turn that all the way in, close it, and then we're going to open up 2.5 turns out from closed. That's where I start at. If I feel like I need a little bit more paint, I might turn it up a little bit to 3. But typically 3 is plenty. As far as the air pressure, when we're spraying base coat or sealer, we run it right around 20 psi. Now these gun settings are just a guide. They're going to get you in the ballpark, but you can make adjustments from there if you feel you need more material coming out of the gun, you need less air or more air. Don't be afraid to make adjustments. It's a really good idea to play around with your gun settings and practice with them. Kind of get a feel for how changing those gun settings affects the atomization of your paint and your clear coat, just so you get a good feel on how to make adjustments when you're spraying. Because if you're getting dry spray, you want to open up your fluid volume a little bit, get more material coming out, or you may want to dial down your air pressure a little bit. That'll have the same effect. But they work together to get you that proper atomization. We're starting off by spraying sealer over this bumper cover. The sealer we use is the 2253V made by U-POL. This is a budget-friendly 2K urethane primer / sealer. It can also be used as a primer surfacer, which is a thinner primer, less build, or you can use it as a sealer. So if you mix it up 4 to 1 to 2, you can use it as a sealer before you paint. So that's what we're going to use here. We've got it mixed up. We do need to tack rag this off and clean it and then apply an adhesion promoter before we spray our sealer. We want that sealer to adhere properly to this plastic bumper cover. And I always seal bumper covers. It's a very good idea. Gives it a little bit of cushion, gives it better adhesion. You just get better results when you use a sealer on bumper covers. The adhesion promoter we're using is the U-POL number 4. And I'm going to leave the links to all these products down in the description. There are some drawbacks to using sealer, especially in this environment where you're not in a paint booth, you're in an open garage. You've got more chance of getting particles of dust in your paint job. But we're going to show you how you can correct that later on in this video. We're going to talk about how to avoid that and some steps you can take to eliminate that dust so you get a really clean paint job. Okay, Darius is ready to lay down some sealer. Now, Darius is going around the edges of this bumper cover first and getting those covered. Now, I'm more of a fan of starting on one end and working your way to the other, but I'm okay with him doing it whatever way he feels comfortable. It's really not that big a deal, but I start from one end, work my way to the other. The other tip I want to give you is if you're laying down your first substrate, you want to dust coat it on. So he's kind of doing that here since he's going around the edges. He's putting a dust coat over this entire bumper cover without even knowing it. The reason for that is because if you try to put it on medium or heavy on your first coat, there's a good chance that you may get some fish eyes just from the shock of that material landing on the new panel. Even if you've cleaned it, even if you've washed it and done all the things you should do, that could happen. So I would recommend a dust coat on before you put it on medium to wet. Now he's going around and putting it on medium wet. Now, as far as the technique to spraying, we've got our gun settings all set up. You want to have a consistent speed and a consistent distance when you're spraying. You want to overlap your passes. So if you make a pass, you want to overlap that previous pass about 70 to 80%, somewhere in there. You always want to follow the wet edge of sealer, paint, or clear coat, whatever you're spraying. But definitely have a consistent speed as you go around that panel and a consistent distance, whatever that may be. Typically, I'm about 4 to 6 inches away. Depending on the day, depending on the temperature, there's a lot of variables there. But what you want to do is you want to watch how that material is laying on the panel. If it's going on a little bit heavy, you might want to back away a little bit. You can make adjustments on how that material lays on the panel by your speed and your distance, so you don't have to touch the gun settings. This is an easy way to make those adjustments by your speed or your distance. When you're spraying your sealer, your goal should be to lay that sealer down as smooth as possible. The smoother your sealer, the smoother your base coat, the smoother your clear coat's going to be. All right, Darius is going to mix up some paint. There's the color. So we're mixing it 2 to 1. So we're going to find the 2 to 1 ratio there at the bottom, which is right there. And he's going to go to the 4. Then we're going to use some urethane reducer. And he's going to put the 1 part in, so he'll go to the 4 in the 1 column. So this is a budget-friendly gun, perfect for DIYers. We've got this is the fluid volume here. This is the fan control. We've got the fluid volume to 2.5 turns out from closed. So we closed it all the way and then turned it 2.5 turns out. The fan's wide open and he's going to run it at about 20 PSI. Consumes less air, so if you have a smaller air compressor, it's good. Not a super small air compressor. You need a compressor that produces about 8 or 9 CFM. It's great because it produces less overspray. That's why we like it. And it produces a great looking finish. So I always seal bumpers, but the bad thing about bumpers, the bad thing about using sealer is there's more opportunity for dust to get in your paint job. So what we'll do is after we put our first coat of base on, we'll let it dry. And we'll inspect it for any minor particles of dust, and then we can sand those out real quick. So we'll let this flash off, and then we'll go through and we'll inspect it for any little particles of dust. And we'll just nib those out with a little bit of 600 grit sandpaper. And that'll give you a much cleaner paint job. That's one step that really makes a big difference. You can see there's a particle of dust right there in the sealer. If you look real close, I don't know if you can see that right there. We just need to knock that down. Make sure this is nice and smooth. We put another coat of paint on it. Maybe 2 more, we'll be ready for some clear coat. So we got this piece of 600 here, we're just going around. See that little spot right there? That's in the sealer, so we're just sanding that smooth. We're knocking off the head of any dust that we feel. The smoother we can get it, the better off we are. The cleaner your paint job is going to be. I like to feel over it, and actually most of the time you're just better off just to sand over the whole thing lightly, because it really helps you find those dust particles. We're going to put a couple more coats on this anyway, so. Just going to use this tack cloth to wipe it down. Yeah. Yep, that's good. Okay, so we're getting ready to clear this. Darius is bumping up the air pressure. Because we're doing clear coat, he's going to bump it up to 25 psi with the trigger pulled. We've still got 2.5 turns on the fluid volume, and the fan pattern is still wide open. So let's go ahead and suit up. He's going to work his way from one end of the bumper cover to the other. Oh yeah, looks good. Nice. There you go. Nice. Perfect. Okay. Instead of doing the whole bumper and coming back and hitting here, let's do this section and make sure we hit this as we move this way. You know what I mean? Because see, when you came back and did this, see how it looks a little bit dry on the edge? Yeah. That's because this is already, when you went past here, that's starting to dry. So then when you finish that, by the time you finish that and you did this, now that dry spray is sitting on kind of clear that's already starting to set up. So you kind of want to keep that edge wet. Looks real good. Looks real good. Looks real clean. Very clean. A little particle of dust there, but we're going to give it 10 minutes to flash off. Okay, Darius is ready to put his last coat on. Here's what it looks like now. Pretty clean. Looks pretty good. Okay, Darius is getting ready to put the second coat of clear on. The first coat is just basically to introduce that clear coat to the surface. You want it to look good, but it doesn't necessarily have to be perfect. After the first coat, I kind of talked to Darius about continuing his spray pattern. He had a tendency to kind of stop, and I know it's just because he's getting his bearings and kind of figure out what to do. He's not used to this. And he doesn't have the muscle memory of how to go around a bumper cover. So what I wanted him to try and do is try and continue following that wet edge. You saw me talk to him about coming back and spraying the edges after he had already sprayed one side of the bumper cover. That can cause a dry spray over your clear that's curing. So it can make it look dry around the edges. You don't get that nice high gloss deep finish. So what I wanted him to focus on is getting all those edges as he moves around the bumper cover. So he doesn't have to go back and hit those areas that are drying with fresh clear. Hopefully he picks up some of that stuff, and he's just going to continually get better as he gets more experience. One thing I did notice as I'm watching this video is he's doing a really good job at keeping a consistent distance and a consistent speed. I'm really impressed with that, and I think you guys will notice it too. Again, when you're clear coating, you want to keep that consistent distance, that consistent speed. You want to make sure you're overlapping your passes about 70 to 80%, and evaluate the clear as you're laying it down. If you see that you're getting it on a little too heavy, maybe speed up. If you see that you're getting on a little bit too dry, you may need to slow down or move a little bit closer to the panel. Remember, you can make those adjustments as you're clear coating by adjusting your speed and your distance. I did want to mention the clear coat we're using today, which is pretty much the clear coat we use for most jobs, unless it's an overall paint job. I am going to be trying some different clear coats, but the one we're using today is the Sherwin-Williams FC710, which is a spot panel clear. It's made for multiple panels, but not an entire vehicle. It dries quickly. I think it's dust free after 15 minutes, meaning you're not going to get any more dust in your paint job after 15 minutes. So you definitely want to check that out. Like I said, I'll leave links to all the products we're using in this video down in the description. They're budget friendly products. They're going to really save you some money, and they do a really good quality job. This finish came out really nice. I'm really happy with how well Darius sprayed. He's just getting better and better. It came out very clean. Now we do have some particles of dust that we need to remove. I'm going to show you exactly how we do that right now. I've got some quick tips for you that's going to make it a really simple process. But before we get into that, I did want to mention I have digital guides available at garagenoisegear.com that are going to walk you through the entire process of clearing, of how to spray base, of how to use different primers, of how to straighten metal, and how to use body filler. If you're looking for something like that, it's a great reference guide, and it helps support the channel. It's the next day. We're taking a look at this bumper cover that Darius painted yesterday. He did a fantastic job. He's really improving. Very nice. I don't think I could have done it any better myself. We got a couple little particles of dust. The clear coat held really well. Didn't really pinch back. We got a little texture right here, but that's from the base coat. He got his base coat on a little bit heavy. A little bit of texture in the base coat. But overall, this finish is totally acceptable. We got a couple little particles of dust. I'm going to show you how we're going to nib those out right now. A little bit of a bonus feature. This is the worst piece of dust right there. Correct this. We got a new filtration system. So I'll just show you this. Seemed like it worked really well. This is it right here. It's the Merlin. And this is from Harbor Freight. So I may put something else on with this, but this seems to be doing really well. So it's got a filter inside here. You know, maybe once a year, maybe sooner, you need to replace. So you just unhook the air, detach it right here, and then you change the filter that's in here. Air compressor, and you saw Rand over here. I'm working on moving this outside. I'd like to move this outside. It's really noisy in here. It'd be better for videos for sure. Let's denib this, take out some of this dust. I'm going to show you one way you can do it. There's a couple different ways you can do it. I'm going to show you a simple way you can do it with just a piece of 2000 grit sandpaper. Right here is a particle of dust. I don't know if you can see that. It's in the light there. I'm just taking a piece of 2000 grit sandpaper. I think this is 2000. Yeah, 2000. I'm just going to show you dry, so we're just going to sand this out. This is really not that difficult. That's a real small piece. We're just gonna, you can use water with this if you want. I'm just showing you dry right now. But if you want to use water, that's fine. I'm not really pressing hard. I'm just sanding over it lightly. This is really easy to buff out. That's why I use 2000. If you got really heavy texture, you might want to use 1500 to get the texture out. But if you just need to denib stuff, 2000's pretty good. Now, I could go over this with 3000 afterward to make it really easy to buff, and maybe I will. 2000 will knock those particles of dust out. This is cheap. This is really cheap, really inexpensive. This large piece of trash. And I'll tell you what really helped is when we put on our sealer, then we put our first coat of base on, and then we went around with 600 and we knocked out any trash that was in it after we put our first coat of base in. Of course, you got to let it, dry well enough so you can sand it. Usually about 15 to 20 minutes, starting to level out, and that's what you want to do. Kind of level it out. Now it's mostly totally gone now. I'll probably wait till we get this on the vehicle to buff it. So this is the Milwaukee buffer we're going to use. This one's been through it all. We got a little bit of CSI compound. I'll just put a little on here. We'll show you how quickly this buffs up. Like I said, you could go over this with 3000 if you wanted. I'm going to start off slow, just kind of work that compound in so it doesn't just sling everywhere. And then I'll slowly ramp up the speed. I'm just feathering the trigger here. This is a handy little unit, so. I could use a larger buffer, and if this was on the vehicle, I would definitely use a larger buffer. But this is nice for these intricate little areas. All right, get you a good look at that. There might be a few little fine scratches in there still, but that particle of dust is gone. See that? Nice. Right here's where it was. So what I'm going to do now, I'll finish denibbing this. We'll go around and buff all these areas out. That's a really quick and easy way and a cheap way to denib your bumper covers and then just polish them up. You're going to need some kind of buffer. If you have an orbital sander, palm sander, you could put a pad on that. You could use that to polish this out. Now it's going to take a little bit longer with an orbital. Rotary is a little bit quicker. There is more room for error with the rotary. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'm trying to hit 100,000 subscribers, so definitely subscribe to the channel. I want 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I can't do it without you, so help me achieve that goal. Subscribe to the channel. We've got a lot of great information on this channel. Appreciate each and every one of you watching. We'll see you on the next episode of Garage Noise.